dead. He's such a bummer.
Did you sit on it?
No, he fell down, but I figure that's a pretty big distance for his size, right? That'd be like us falling off a building.
So you don't have to sync them up later.
Okay. Go ahead. You say your name?
My name's Taki. I grew up in Davis, and I'm doing tattoos now in San Jose. I've been tattooing for 21 years. I left Davis in 1991, but it's actually, we're here at Whaleback Park, where I think I spent quite a good amount of time as a child skating on this little bank here with friends and hanging out, like most of us.
Who were some of the friends you skated with here at Whaleback Park?
Oh, so some of the people I would skate with here, Noah Moyle, Chris Gunyon, Aaron Zanetto, you. There was a lot, it was just kind of but we're just kids having a good time. Oh, Bill Briggs. God, it's funny because I'm 45 years old now, so it's like the memory's a little slow. But there's just there's a lot of people. Yeah, it's fun.
Okay. So when did you live in Davis exactly?
I think I moved here when I was maybe 5 years old, and then I left at 17 in 1991. So yeah,
Okay.
Basically my formative years were all spent here.
Okay. Why did you start skateboarding?
I think initially we just kind of got caught up in that whole skateboarding as a trend. Remember there's that one year maybe in 4th or 5th grade where everybody has skateboard, and it's I think my first skateboard was some piece of crap Action Sports from Price Club, I believe, that I had to beg my parents to get me, and then finally when I could actually get a real board, I was so stoked. But I think initially it just sort of started out hey, everyone's doing this right now. It got really big for a minute, and then I think a small group of us kept going the next year when everyone else dropped it and moved to the next thing. And I think that was just because it really spoke to us. One of the reasons originally I was a little hesitant to even be interviewed for this documentary, because I never thought that I ripped that hard, and even with the punk thing I never really thought that I was a great drummer or nothing, but I did have a sick mohawk. But both those things, skateboarding and punk rock, and then eventually tattoos, which all kind of came together, just were huge influences on my life, and that's really kind of what formed me, in my opinion. I think a lot of what appealed to me skateboarding was just sort of the no rules, the question authority thing, and even just being a smartass. I think there's a certain people for us where skateboarding will never be a sport. Skateboarding was just who we were. It was an identity. It wasn't even so much as an action. It was more just we were skaters, and then we were punkers, and I guess now I'm a tattooer.
Do you think skateboarding all led to your tattoo work, or?
I think skateboarding 100% led to tattooing. Everyone knows the story back then. Tattoos, they weren't super common. And remember that issue with Glenn Danzig, the Godoys, Jason Jesse? I fell in love right there. I was wow, I think prior to that, I'd seen big Japanese tattoos in a few publications, but really seeing the Godoy brothers, Jason Jesse's interview.
That mentioned Art Godoy in a long time.
Well, and they're tattooing, but that was it was just the light bulb went on, or the bomb exploded, whatever you want to call it. That was huge for us. We idolized those people, and I just right then I was I want to sleep. I want to get tatted up. And back then it's really you look at musicians, what is it, Motley Crue had some tats, Danzig had some, punk bands here and there. I think the only rapper to have a tattoo was LL Cool J. It was just a little microphone here. I remember there was a quote from Ice-T, why would I put a bumper sticker on a Rolls Royce? So nowadays if you look at the music industry, sports, everyone's tattooed. But back then I felt it was ex-Marines, bikers, ex-cons, punkers, skaters. That was the main group of tattooed people, and and I felt because those other things, it was an outsider thing back then. Now it's a bit different, but I think that was part of the appeal, a little bit of the unknown, a little maybe the danger, and I think for a lot of kids, especially here in the suburbs, we were craving something exciting, something fun, and also too, I think we just had some good experiences. We were kids, we're having a good time, and hanging out with your friends, just like kids do every day, and we'll always do.
Stop there. Rest. Is that good?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
really good.
We'll do a couple more of those type questions. Probably about that long.
Rolling.
Okay.
Can you name some of the places that you bought boards downtown Davis?
Oh man, what was it? Davis Sports Shop actually, like in the back.
Yeah.
You get there, and then I also think there's a lot of like the just kind of like recycling, like buying boards off other people and stuff like that.
You did a lot of trading back
Yeah,
then.
there's a lot of trading, and like it's kind of like it's funny too, because like when I moved to San Jose, you know, I'd met a lot of like guys that were pros and sponsored, and it's crazy how quick they throw out boards, or like they do them and then sell them to the neighborhood kids for $5. Like, but you know, just once they lost that snap, and when we were kids, like, we would use it to the end, you know.
We would,
Yeah. But I think that's, you know, it's also just being kids, and you know, it's not like we had the money or the wherewithal to get these boards and stuff.
That's right. Last time I was there, you introduced me to Cab.
Yeah.
That was far out.
No, it's kind of crazy. But that's the other thing too. Like, so I think, you know, like when you look at a town like Davis, it's a small college town, and like, you know, but then there's like, we would think, oh my God, Raging Waters, or oh, these people, and then like you know, like I said, you go other places, like, oh, that's here. You know, I remember like seeing Derby for the first time, or going to San Jose. Oh, well, that's this place. Or I think people feel like that when they go, oh, there's Chinatown Banks or this or whatever. You know, and I think for us it was like always like a way to feel connected with like the larger world. You know, because I was more just like, you know, we were just like slapping up curves, hitting little banks. Like I remember like spent a lot of time. Aaron Zanetto had that like quarter pipe. Like, you know, we had like I think there was a whole summer when launch ramps were in, and then all of a sudden they were out, right?
Right.
We spent the whole summer just pushing out the launch ramp every day and just
That's
going,
right.
you know?
Yeah, and driving up the wall, trying to get up the wall with it. Yeah. It's amazing what we did to like just.
But then it's funny too, right? Like think about like the way, because I kind of like got away from it for a while, and then to come back and like just even the way the shapes changed, the way everything changed. I remember one time, do you remember like the huge, like, what was it, the 66 millimeter slime balls?
Yeah.
Or the big bullet? No, they're bullets, right? I remember Aaron Zanetto, like, I think was the first one to get
bullets.
some. And we were skating somewhere. He's just like running through rocks and stuff like this. See, look, I can go through anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, but then like the trends, you know, between like having like the cell blocks to nothing to like the big wheels to the little wheels to back to the big, you know, it's just,
Right.
you know, it's interesting.
What were some of the other places you skated here in Davis?
Oh man. Oh, what's that? I remember Adam Wright used to shred that thing, but there's the
tunnel.
Yeah, the tunnel.
Yeah.
There's that thing. I think just anywhere. Well, even like later on, like UC Davis, there's tons of ledges around there. You know. You know, Berto Feliciano, that guy used to rip it up too. Oi was sick. You know, I remember those guys. Yeah, a lot of those guys were just killing it. It was cool. You know.
What made you want to get into punk music?
I didn't know that I wanted to. It just happened. And this is actually ironic that I moved to San Jose, but the first cassette I was ever given was a tape of The Faction. And it was just like, whoa, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like, I think like at the time, like Iron Maiden and Slayer were like the hardest things. And just like, whoa, this is a whole new world. And, you know, we were craving it, you know, and that's like, and that really got me into that. And I think, and actually subsequently, I think that even kind of led me away from skating more. Like I was more like full on punk rock stuff. Yeah, a bit, yeah. And, you know, that kind of like, but I'll never, like, I always think that skateboarding was kind of the gateway. Ooh, the gateway, right? But like, you know, like towards that. And even like when you think about like that and punk and then tattooing, I mean, think about like not just the same people doing all those, but even just like from like board graphics to album covers to painting jackets to like tattoo stuff. I mean, I think it was all interconnected. And you know, like I was telling you before, like guys like, you know, like Oi, Tim Lane, stuff like those were, I mean, Ben Aller was a huge influence on me as far as like everybody kind of like drawing and being into tattoos and being like, oh, we should get tattooed. And like I remember even like high school, like I wanted a tattoo, but I was like no, there's no. It was a lot more guarded back then. And even when I started, and I apprenticed in '97, and even then it was a lot harder to get into than now. But you know, you can imagine being like 16, 17 years old. I had no clue how to get in. You know, just walking into a tattoo shop was super intimidating. But I felt like it was kind of like that way too with like, you know, like when you go, like when you're a little kid and you see the older skaters, especially the guys from Sacramento, you know what I mean? Because they'd always like rip it, you know what I mean? It was just like, or when they show up at a house party, those guys were animals. It was great, you know? So.
Let me see that. Do you want to do any like actual or filming on him, like while we're talking?
Um.
What are you doing?
Propping it up.
Well, I'd like you to film with that, like actually film.
Okay.
So when did you leave Davis?
I left Davis in 1991. Graduated a year early, got out of there, and then I went to UC Santa Cruz. And I was in school there from 91 to 94. And after I graduated, moved to San Jose.
Okay. What'd you do after that?
Like most college graduates, I worked around retail for a bit. And then actually I was getting my arm tattooed and had the opportunity. I started getting tattooed. I actually got tattooed while I was still in high school. Ben Aller and I, we both got tattoos. And I actually had, a mohawk, and I got some, like, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but I got like this pseudo tribally looking thing.
Okay. Yeah.
In San Francisco, and those were the days when you're like, please don't card me, please don't card me, But so I continued to get tattooed, and then I just had an opportunity to apprentice, and I took it, and that was 1997. Just been doing that all the time now, full time. Yeah.
Great. Do you ever skateboard at all these days?
Just a little bit, just putting around. I got a liquor store board with the the blood clot wheels, but not a whole lot. Yeah.
What were some of your favorite punk bands back then?
Oh my
Local
God.
bands.
Oh, local? I mean, I guess everyone from Davis.
Start with your local bands, and then you
7
can name.
Seconds and Necromancy. Love those
Right.
guys. I think larger scale.
Yeah.
Like I was a huge Conflict fan. Poison Idea. Oh my God, like this is putting me on the spot here. I mean, Misfits, all of Danzig's bands, like all that. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I couldn't even begin to tell you. Like, what I mean? Like,
Okay.
But one thing I've found is like I feel like the stuff that I liked then is what I like now. Like I don't really get into the new music too much. But one thing that was cool is that like I actually also had the opportunity. We were like kind of like hanging out pretty much every weekend for like a year at Gilman Street. So we were helping out there, and then we also threw some shows here in Davis. I got some flyers of those, but we threw Citizen Fish, Born Against in Rorschach, Green Day a few times. So that was cool, and that was actually kind of like you make do with what you got. Like Davis is a small town, but it was cool that there was this guy. You would probably remember his name. What was his name? But he used to throw the shows at the Vets Hall. Do you remember his name? Was it Scott? He was in a band called Platypus Scourge from Sacramento.
Oh.
Okay, anyhow,
remember.
but because of him, at least we got to go to these shows, In fact, the first punk show I went to was like a day in the park. Was that what it's called? It was a community park.
Uh-huh.
And I remember Christ on Parade was the headliner, and
Okay.
like I still can't believe I got to see that band live. Another sick band. But yeah, I remember I think I was 16 or something. And it was funny because I was little, and I jumped in the pit and got elbowed in the nose like right away, and I was like, oh man, but it was great, like it was just being a kid and having a good time, and I think that's I think that's what that was for us. You know what I mean? Like it was like our
Interesting.
way to just kind of be different and have fun.